Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. So there's actually a lot of good news to get to today, so let's dive right in. First thing you should know, there was a map update in Russia's Kursk region. This area of the map was filled in. Previously this was the disputed gray zone, but Russian forces have been firmly expelled from these settlements. Ukraine continues to consolidate their gains inside of Russia, and Ukraine is still focused on the village of Kara-Dag. The Russians have a serious problem in that their only supply road is right here, and Ukraine is patrolling it with FPV drones. It's very difficult for the Russians remaining in this village to be resupplied. So I think it's only a matter of time before Ukraine takes this village, and then they're going to start sweeping west. This is the Glushkovo district of Kursk. This is the village, this is the Sam River, and any Russian forces remaining in this region are now surrounded on three sides with a river behind them. And the Russians did it again. This was their fourth or fifth attempt to construct a pontoon bridge. As soon as this is spotted by a satellite or a drone, Ukraine's going to call in a HIMARS strike. If you want to see the video for yourself, I'll link it down below, but attempt number 4 or 5 being destroyed. According to President Zelensky, Russia has lost 6,000 troops in Kursk, and Kursk is no longer a threat to attack the Sumy region. According to Zelensky, Russia was preparing a new offensive on the region of Sumy, but Ukraine turned the situation around and is now pushing the war into Russian territory through their successful counteroffensive. So the 6,000 is killed, captured, and wounded, and just based on all the video evidence I've seen, that's not unrealistic for the last month of fighting just in the territory of Kursk. Let's now switch to the other side of the map. Russian offensive near Pokrovsk is slowing down according to media reports. Ukrainian brigades launch a targeted counterattack to defend the city of Pokrovsk. The once seemingly inevitable Russian conquest of this town now appears uncertain. Ukrainians reclaim positions at Donetsk's New York and in Kharkiv's Lipsy. So the Ukrainians, basically there was a lot of political pressure. What I think occurred was General Syrsky made a calculation. He assumed that if they invaded Russia, Russia would divert attention and resources to defending Kursk. That didn't happen. Putin apparently doesn't care if he loses his own territory and his own cities and settlements are being destroyed. So they pressed with the attack, and I don't think the calculation was made by the Ukrainians that it would continue. So it took a couple weeks for soldiers on the front lines to get this up the chain of command. Ukrainian high command reallocated resources, and additional fighting units have been deployed to defend Pokrovsk. The Russians, over the last 7 days, have not made any progress towards the town, and Ukraine even went on the counterattack to reclaim some lost positions in the city of New York. This is what it looked like a week ago, and Ukraine reclaimed some positions. Now, we need to be honest. Russia is going to continue making progress, specifically, I think, in this region right here. There are still a couple hundred or maybe even 1,000 or so Ukrainian defenders protecting these fields, but they need to be pulled out. Topographically, this is a low region. If they retreat back to these settlements right here, this is a higher region on the map. Strategically, sometimes it makes sense to pull back and conserve lives. Let Russia take the open fields and tree lines that are in the low position, and then pull back your forces to protect more of these villages and settlements along this river. So I do suspect over the next week or two, this is going to fill in red, but this will be one of these planned pullbacks to basically flatten out the front lines. If you want to see some combat video from this region, this is the Kara-Dag Brigade. They were reallocated this month from Zaporizhia to Pokrovsk. They've been pumping out videos on Telegram to show they're in the region and they're actively fighting. This is an 18+ video, but I'll link it down below if you want to see the fighting for yourself. So let's do a recap of the last major offensives, both from the Russians and the Ukrainians. I personally hate map updates because I don't think this is how this war will be won or lost for either side. But these are the metrics. This is the scoreboard that people pay attention to. And over the last 9 months, the Russians have gained, since January, 920 square kilometers in Donetsk. All of the advances through Avdiivka towards the town of Pokrovsk, 920 square kilometers. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians going into Kursk, they have so far taken 10,100 square kilometers. That's the scoreboard. The Russians today control less territory in the war zone than they did at the start of the year. If we just think back in time to January, how many tens of thousands of Russian soldiers have been killed, captured, or wounded taking the city of Avdiivka, trying to advance towards the town of Pokrovsk? And 9 months later, the Russians control less territory overall because they're getting their asses kicked in Kursk. Now, unfortunately for the civilians of Pokrovsk, your town is going to be destroyed because Pokrovsk is now within artillery range. Every day the Russians are just going to destroy a couple buildings. A couple buildings today, a couple buildings tomorrow. After 3 to 6 months, nothing will be left. Ukraine cancels Pokrovsk evacuation train, citing security fears. Ukraine on Thursday canceled a train that was set to ferry civilians fleeing the town, as it's now being bombarded daily by the Russians. So Pokrovsk officially is without running water and electricity. They can't use their rail network anymore. All civilians are encouraged to evacuate. And I do want to share this single story from Ukrainian journalist Maria Avdieva. She's currently in the town of Pokrovsk covering civilian evacuations. And she shares this story. After 83 years, Raisa Pavlina is leaving her home and garden for the first time, packing her life into just a few bags. She picked her grapes one last time to share with people, and she's now evacuating. These are the grapes from her garden, and this is the 83-year-old Ukrainian woman being forced to flee her home because Ruski Mir is coming for her. Now, she is choosing to evacuate, but there are lots of people from at-risk cities and villages who are never willing to evacuate. Ukraine can't make them go. And I want to share a video. This is an 87-year-old woman who still lives in her destroyed home in the city of Kherson. Kherson was liberated over a year ago, but the Russians on the other side of the river continue to shell buildings to kill civilians. And this is what this woman says about never leaving her home.
Будинок, так?
Да, оце наш будинок.
Оцей.
Оце будинок.
А як же ви тут живете?
Ну, в нас в нашому будинку 3 сім'ї ж осталось живуть. На першому поверсі. Я на другому. І на третьому приходить внук в пусту квартиру. А більше нікого немає. Все побите і все нежиле. Я люблю Херсон, нема краще ніде так, як вдома. Це в мене закон. Як би не важко би мені тут жилось, але я вдома.
No matter how hard it is to live here, I'm still at home. Let's talk about this story. US and UK spy chiefs praise Ukraine's Kursk incursion, saying the West shouldn't fear Russia's nuclear threats. CIA Director Burns and MI6 Chief Moore commend Ukraine's audacious incursion into Russia's Kursk Oblast and stress the importance of sustained Western support. Burns says there was a genuine risk of Russia using tactical nukes in the fall of 2022, but I'm guessing the Chinese and the Indians convinced Putin not to do it. According to the CIA chief, Russia's elite left questioning the war after the Kursk incursion. So for Putin's inner circle and the Russian elites of Moscow and St. Petersburg, Putin sold them this invasion as a special 3-day military operation. Quick and easy, Zelensky's going to flee, the West is never going to support Ukraine, minimal casualties, and there's so much to gain by absorbing a country of 40 million back into the Russian Empire. Well, now that Russia has been invaded, and the armed forces of Ukraine are still being supported by the West 2.5 years later. Yeah, if I was a millionaire living in Moscow or St. Petersburg, still loyal to Putin's regime, I would have questions. So this is an interesting clip from the CIA director. We don't hear from him often, but he appeared at a public event, and let me share with you 30 seconds of what he has to say.
You know, Putin's whole narrative right now is a very cocky, very smug one. It's time's on my side. It's only a matter of time before the Ukrainians are going to be ground down and all of their supporters in the West are going to be worn down, and I'll be able to dictate my terms for a settlement. And I think, you know, what these events have done, the Kursk offensive most recently, is to put a dent in that narrative. And it does raise questions in the Russian elite about what is all this for.
So Putin, 2.5 years into this war, is still cocky. He's still confident that eventually he can grind Ukraine to dust and the West will stop supporting Ukraine. We'll see if he feels any different after the November election when Donald Trump loses, but at the moment, the Russians are feeling a little confident. But every day they take losses. Drones attack an ammo depot in Russia's Voronezh Oblast, causing a massive explosion. There's videos online. I'll link these down below if you want to see them for yourself. And check out the satellite images. This is the before. I think the ammunition depot is maybe here or somewhere here, but wow, what the heck did Ukraine do to this region? So this was attacked by drones. This is inside of Russia. An ammunition depot went boom, and it looks like all the fields and forested areas all caught fire as a result of the secondary explosions. Now, Ukraine is claiming that this ammunition depot contained missiles that were given by North Korea to the Russians. I do believe that the United States has this intelligence. They probably did share this intelligence with Ukraine, and Ukraine can allocate their own domestically produced drones to go after these ammunition depots containing North Korean KN-23 ballistic missiles. They have a range of 900 kilometers. We've hit North Korean missiles in a Russian ammunition depot. Iran's missiles are next. This really should be one of the top news stories in the world for multiple days. It's so insane. But Iran, according to Western intelligence, is now shipping hundreds of ballistic missiles to Russia for Russia then to use on Ukraine. How many is hundreds? The estimate given is about 200 short-range ballistic missiles. And we need to do something about this. The West, especially Europe, needs to be doing more. The United States needs to be doing more. Canada, Australia, Japan, South Korea, everyone needs to be doing more, as Iran is shipping missiles to Russia to be used on European cities to kill civilians. I don't know what else to say. Let's now follow up on this story, and if you haven't been paying attention, let me get you caught up. US intel finds Russia's RT News trying to push Americans towards Trump. The United States, with an unsealed indictment from the Department of Justice, charged 2 RT employees, these are Russian citizens, on Wednesday with money laundering and attempting to hire an American firm to produce content to sway voters towards Trump, towards Russia, and against Ukraine. So this company's name is Tenet Media, and they were based out of Tennessee. And this was funded through shell companies, money laundering from agents at RT News, Russia Today. So the content creators hired by Tenet Media claim they're the victims, and they didn't know that the money that they were receiving was coming from RT News, from the Russians. I'll just give you the name of the talents: Lauren Southern, Tim Pool, Taylor Hansen, Matt Christensen, Dave Rubin, and Benny Johnson. I don't know why the website is still up. Everything else is being deleted by various platforms. So the Tenet Media YouTube channel had 315,000 subscribers and 2,000 videos. It has since been deleted by YouTube. The intermediary person that you should get to know, her name is Lauren Chen. She is a former contributor to RT News, so she's the one that had the contacts with the Russians. She was the one receiving the money, telling the MAGA influencers, hey, I've got these investors that want to start this media company, Tenet Media. Can I pay you to license your content with Tenet Media? So Lauren Chen 100% knew everything that was going on. She's complicit in this crime, even though she hasn't been indicted by the DOJ yet. This is coming soon, I believe. Nobody has seen or heard from Lauren Chen in the last 5 or 6 days. She could be in custody at the moment. I don't know. Her backstory is really weird. She's not even American. She's a Canadian conservative of Chinese ancestry. And for some reason, she works with American companies like Blaze TV and Turning Points USA to influence US politics when she's not even American. Wikipedia is currently debating whether or not they should delete her entire page. An editor has nominated this article for deletion. And this is the Russian standard playbook to hire or groom attractive women to convince unsuspecting dupes to do what the Russians want. You can call it honeypotting or whatever, but this is an attractive Asian woman who approached mostly conservative white guys and convinced them to take Russian money to promote Donald Trump and the Russian narrative, Russian disinformation and propaganda. So Lauren Chen's YouTube channel has been deleted by YouTube for violating their community guidelines. And the question now is, will the content creators who claim they're victims, one of them being Taylor Hansen, will their individual YouTube channels be deleted? And this guy was the first to fall. This was announced yesterday. Taylor Hansen, I got his attention. I've been tweeting at him, not so friendly things, but he now follows me on Twitter because I got their attention. And he says he was permanently banned on YouTube with no explanation. Are they going to stop with me? Or do they have an axe to grind with anyone that was affiliated with Tenet Media? So here's the thing. YouTube has their own community guidelines. And one of those guidelines is if you accept money for sponsorships, you have to tell YouTube and you have to tell your audience. You can't be taking money from anyone, whether it's Axe body spray or Pepsi Cola. You can't take money from people and not tell YouTube and tell your audience that you're a paid sponsor. So what these influencers are trying to argue is it's not a sponsorship. They were signing a licensing agreement. They were going to make whatever content they wanted to make. They weren't being influenced in any way, and they were simply licensing their videos to Tenet Media. Not a sponsorship, it's a licensing, but I don't think YouTube is buying it. And Taylor Hansen's channel was the first to be deleted. So the question now is, will the bigger YouTubers be deleted as well? One being Tim Pool. And this guy's an idiot, but he decided to try to defend himself, and he put out this interview with Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro asked him fluff questions to allow him to give his side of the story, but everything in this video is a bald-faced lie. And let's just go through the clip with Tim Pool together.
And we were preparing to engage in sponsorships, and they were getting hundreds of thousands of views per episode. And
the first thing you should know is Tim Pool just admitted that his weekly podcast only gets hundreds of thousands of views. You can go on Apple Podcasts, you can go on Spotify, you can go on YouTube. He gets like 100 to 200,000 views per video. It's not that impressive. It's enough to live on. It's better than the average, but still nothing groundbreaking here.
And we decided to license it out because Lauren contacted us and was saying, we'd love to license something from you. And I said, well, we don't need to do that. We're an independent company. We have our own members and sponsorships. And then it took quite a while, but long story short, we agreed to a non-exclusive broadcast license, which meant that we own the show.
So Lauren Chen, the attractive Asian woman working for the Russians, approached Tim Pool and convinced him to take their money for a licensing agreement of Tim Pool's podcast.
I barely even talked to Lauren. And it's kind of crazy. I've known her for a long time. So when she said that she was launching a company, she had investors, I'm like, okay. I mean, I hear that 50 times a year.
So he's known Lauren Chen for a long time, but also barely talks to her. And Tim Pool is so in demand that 50 different companies a year approach him wanting to license his truly amazing content so that it can be rebroadcast on other channels or wherever. Okay, dude.
And in the podcast space, we just heard that I think Travis Kelce is getting a $100 million contract. So these numbers that's where they're at. I think people don't realize how big the podcasting space is and the revenue that you generate from sponsorships. And
so Tim Pool is saying you don't understand the podcasting space and how big it is, because Travis Kelce just got a $100 million contract for his podcast. Travis Kelce, Super Bowl winning tight end Travis Kelce, who's sleeping with Taylor Swift. I think they're engaged now, but Tim Pool just compared himself to Travis Kelce. That might be the funniest thing I've heard in a long time, but okay, Tim Pool, you and Travis Kelce, basically the same thing, both making a lot of money in the podcast sphere. Not strange at all.
Membership. For all I knew, this was, Lauren Chen, she works at The Blaze. She wanted to start a company. She found investors. That was seemingly the gist of it. We only ever took money from an American corporation. The amount of money that we were offered for the show was around market value for offers we had already received.
So Tim Pool was paid a $100,000 sign-up bonus and then $100,000 a week to license 4 clips from his once-a-week podcast. And he's saying that's fair market value. For a podcast that gets, we'll be generous, 200,000 views across all the platforms, fair market value for his podcast is $100,000 a week. Who is dumb enough to believe this?
And so it was just like, cool, I know Lauren, sure, whatever. And then you got Benny and Dave and Matt Christensen and Taylor Hansen, who I know them all. And I'm like, yeah, this seems fine, whatever. And the crazy thing is, assuming all this stuff is true, I'm like, man, this sucks. We didn't need the deal. The deal didn't do anything for us. It was just...
Making $100,000 a week didn't do anything for Tim Pool.
Sure, I guess. And the revenue that we were paid through the licensing deal was inconsequential to my lifestyle, to the bottom line of the company. And we've actually never done anything with it. I would say
$100,000 a week is inconsequential to the baller lifestyle that Tim Pool leads. Where's the money? I don't know. I've never even touched it. That $100,000, the millions of dollars the Russians gave me is just laying around here somewhere. I've never even looked at it.
The overwhelming majority of the money is just not gone anywhere. And then, we have people tweeting at me like, give the money back or whatever it is. Like, dude, let me put it this way. We're talking to our legal team. I can say that I just announced I've been contacted by the FBI
So that's what everyone wants to know and what none of these people are talking about. What are you going to do with the money now that you know it came from the Kremlin? Are you going to give it back? Are you going to donate it to a Ukrainian charity? Their answer is no, no, and no. And here's the thing about ill-gotten gains here in the U.S. legal system. If you received money or you benefited from a crime, you don't get to keep it. So this guy has accepted millions of dollars from the Russians over the last 8 or 9 months, and he's got to give it back. The FBI eventually is going to come for it. Even if he never faces any criminal charges or goes to jail or anything, you don't get to keep the money from a crime. Oh my God. So Tim Pool has 1.3 million subscribers on YouTube because he's been a YouTuber much longer than me. When we look at his oldest videos, they're from 12 years ago. So this guy has been grinding on YouTube and the podcasting platforms for more than a decade. Respect to this guy. That's actually very impressive. But what's not impressive is how many views Tim Pool actually gets. 2 hours ago, or let's do 1 day ago, 25,000 views. 5 days ago, 12,000 views. 10 days ago, 19,000 views. I get more views than this guy. That does not make me Travis Kelce. That does not mean fair market value for a sponsorship or licensing deal on my YouTube channel is $100,000 a week. This guy's an idiot. A short, bald idiot. So let's now prove that these guys weren't engaged in a licensing deal. They were taking a sponsorship. Lauren Chen was directing them what to say and do. And the Russians were telling Lauren Chen what to tell people like Tim Pool to say and do. This was unveiled in the indictment. And the example given was the Kremlin City Hall attack in Russia, March of 2024. Islamic terrorists killed 145 people. This made Russia look bad because they're not in control of their own internal security. The fact that these men from one of the Central Asian republics got into the city, killed all these people, terrible first response, made Russia look very bad. So the Russians, the week of the attack, insisted that Ukraine was behind it. Ukraine was involved somehow, even though there was zero evidence, and even Russia's own investigation and conclusion to this attack, they're saying Ukraine had nothing to do with it. But the week of, it's very important for Russian propagandists to spread disinformation, to confuse everyone, just lie and say Ukraine did it. So RT News told Lauren Chen. Lauren Chen then emailed the influencers at Tenet Media, and 2 of them were willing to do it. They responded, "Sure, Lauren, I'll just say Ukraine did it even though there's zero evidence." Here's Tim Pool blaming Ukraine for an Islamic terrorist attack.
These videos get sent to me, of course. I mean, I'm plugged in the news 24/7.
So he just said these videos get sent to me. The Russians are the ones sending him the videos.
And the first thing I said was Ukraine. Only a moron would say otherwise. Ukraine.
Only a moron would say that Ukraine wasn't behind the Kremlin City Hall attack.
For what purpose would anyone attack Russia? Now, to be fair, there's a decent probability that ISIS could make sense because you have Chechnyan Muslims and other anti-Russian forces that have long plagued Russia. But Ukraine makes the most sense. Now, it could be that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and these Islamic extremists from Chechnya or neighboring regions may have gone to Ukraine for aid. And it's basically, you've got a privateer type scenario. Ukraine says, we're at war, you're at war, what do you want? And these guys say, you give us what we need and we can carry out these attacks. And
this is one of the dumbest men on social media. And he's just doing it for money. There's another clip, I'll link this down below, from one of the other influencers, Benny Johnson. He also just said Ukraine did it because that's what the Russians wanted him to say. So here are the Russians on Kremlin State TV offering political asylum to these MAGA influencers with Tenet Media. This is a real clip from Russian Media Monitor. I'll link it down below. But let me read for you what the Russians are saying about this DOJ indictment of these pro-Trump media influencers. Of course, everything that is happening all at once is a systematic plan. RT News is their one direction. Another one is the purge of these bloggers, such as Taylor losing his YouTube channel. The ones tied to RT News and the ones who aren't, I mean, for example, Scott Ritter. I don't know what fate awaits Judge Napolitano. He's a contributor on Fox News. I think it would be a chain reaction. They will try to imprison everyone. They are even getting to Jeffrey Sachs. They've already announced a tentative list of who should be subjected to repressions. I am not exaggerating. If President Joe Biden is a Nazi, and we live in a fascist state here in the United States, why 2.5 years into this war have none of these people been arrested? Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Scott Ritter, they're all still free and they're all still talking. 2.5 years into this war. So this narrative, meanwhile, inside of Russia, if you hold up a white piece of paper, you go to jail for 8 years. But I'm preaching to the choir here. Let's continue. Russia should offer asylum to all of them. As Vladimir Putin said, we don't extradite freedom fighters. We should review the terms of our political asylum and correctly use it in this instance. In other words, this field will be totally purged. I'm anticipating they'll try to drag great friend of Russia, Tucker Carlson. Of course they will. There is no doubt that they will. To be honest, internally, I will always root for Trump. Of course, we have to decide whom to support. This is Soloviev talking. In these elections, the November election here in the United States, we can't just leave it to chance. I purposely didn't touch this topic. This is not an option, especially since Vladimir Putin gave us clear directives as to whom we will now support and why. So they're now playing a clip of Putin speaking at this forum in which he was asked, who do you prefer for president, Trump or Kamala Harris? Putin responds, I already said that our previous favorite, so to speak, was the acting president, Mr. Biden. He was taken out of the race, but he recommended to all his supporters to support Miss Harris. So we will do that as well. We will support Kamala Harris. Since this was commanded, then we must, right? So yes, Putin said this, but the interviewer is laughing when Putin says this. The audience is laughing when Putin says that he supports Harris over Trump. That was the clip. Soloviev comes back. Soloviev says, or Kulikov says, this is trolling of the highest level, and Americans will believe that all of it is for real. And they're all laughing at how dumb people in America are who are willing to repeat the obvious lie that Putin prefers Kamala Harris over Donald Trump. So who would be dumb enough to repeat this obvious misinformation coming from Russia? Elon Musk. Speaking at the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, Putin said his favorite candidate for U.S. president is now Kamala Harris. Elon Musk. Interesting. This is the tip of the iceberg. These first 7 or so influencers to go down, there's more being paid by the Russians. An FBI affidavit that was unsealed this week says that the FBI is maintaining an active list of 2,800 influencers taking money from the Russians. 2,800 influencers across 81 countries, 600 of whom are based here in the United States. So yeah, there's going to be some more indictments. There's going to be some more revelations. Russia has been flooding our social media sphere with paid propaganda to promote Donald Trump and to promote Russia and to weaken support for Ukraine. Let's get to some good news for Ukraine. President Zelensky was at the Ramstein meeting of allies, and at these monthly meetings, this is when a lot of stuff is announced, so we've got quite a few announcements. The first one is a military aid package from the United States worth $250 million. There's about 100 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles and M113 APCs included, as well as the usual good stuff. The European Union allocated $35 million to help Ukraine and $5 million to Moldova for winter support. Thank you so much to all the people of the EU. the Netherlands to supply F-16 equipment and air-to-air missiles worth about 80 million euros. Thank you so much to the people of the Netherlands. UK to send 650 Marlet missiles to Ukraine to strengthen air defenses. Thank you so much to the people of the UK. Lithuania to allocate 11 million to help buy these domestically produced missile drones for Ukraine. Thank you so much to the people of Lithuania. Spain to donate an additional Hawk air defense battery. Thank you so much to the people of Spain. Canada announced a new military aid package, including all of this good stuff. Thank you so much to the people of Canada. Final clip I have to share with you is just sad. As Russia's terrorism continues, Lviv mourns the mother and 3 daughters killed in the Russian strike. Hundreds of people came out to the streets of the city for the ceremony, which was followed across the nation. I shared this in my last video. This has been just a heartbreaking story. This is the Ukrainian husband and father who lost his wife and 3 daughters in a drone attack against Lviv last week. I just want to share this clip of memories from this once happy family. Russia will be defeated. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.